Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Devlog 1 of the Kinship, the working title, at least, for a project of mine that I've been working on for the past 2 weeks and have had in my brain for probably a decade now. It is a tabletop role-playing game inspired multiplayer online role-playing game with inspirations from immersive sims and old-school role-playing games like Daggerfall, MMORPGs like Ultima Online and EverQuest, all kind of wrapped into this perfect little game. Little, I guess, maybe not the right word. That I really have been wanting to make for a really long time. Those of you who have seen videos on my channel before will probably notice that I have a lot of these kind of role-playing game ideas or prototypes uploaded to the channel, and they don't really go anywhere, mostly because over time, I became a more professional developer, and a lot of my time was taken away by doing this for a living. I'm trying to kind of rekindle my passion for game development and my passion for programming by kind of forcing myself to work on something in my free time and get it to a point where it's actually complete and actually a product that can be played and enjoyed by others. So how does the kinship work, and why am I working on this? Why am I sharing this? I think the most important thing I have to say is that my intention is to release this dedicated server for this game so that other players can host their own, virtual role-playing worlds and do so easily. I know tools exist like that for tabletop. I know that tools like that exist for other games in the form of mods. But I wanted something to kind of do myself, to do the systems or incorporate the systems that I feel like are missing in those games, or just that I enjoy and want to see more of in video games. So hopefully those who enjoy this video or enjoy games like this can give me some feedback and some ideas for how I can, push this project along, because to be completely honest, a lot of the time that I have been spending on this has just been thinking through what I want it to have and what I don't want it to have, and what I want to support, and how to do that in a data-driven way for multiplayer. And there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, and I don't have nearly as much experience playing games, a variety of games, as many of you do. So the more feedback and the more ideas that people have, the more directions that my brain can go and kind of find interesting ways to implement them in this game. So what have I done in the last 2 weeks? Not a lot, not in Unreal Engine at least. I will say, I do like Unreal Engine. I'm a proponent of Unreal Engine. I know a lot of people work in Godot right now because of the Unity stuff going on, but I've been working in Unreal Engine since 2014, so it's going to be my bread and butter, and it's kind of what the project's going to live in as a result of just me enjoying working in the engine. So we have a little placeholder world. Nothing too fancy, just something I can walk around in. A lot of water, because I do want boats to be a thing. I enjoy 18th century ships a lot, so certainly will be something that will be implemented at some point in the future with vehicles in general. Additionally, around the screen, you'll notice a large number of windows that are open. Don't worry, they aren't stuck there, but we'll give a little walk around and take a look at what we've got. So you'll notice, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these windows across the screen. For those familiar with games like Ultima Online, it was very important to me to allow users to interact with UI elements with a mouse and keyboard. Mostly because in a game, in an RPG at least, you want to have a lot of interaction with stuff, and it's difficult to really encourage that with a use button, like in something like Half-Life Source games or Minecraft. So in order to support that, I needed to have some kind of mouse mode. So we do have a mouse mode with tab, and this tab mouse mode can both interact with our windows here and with our in our world. There's some features that have not been implemented yet with this mouse mode, such as saving and loading the position of these windows when you log back into the game. as well as some inter-world interactions that I do have coded, just not implemented, such as dropping items from your inventory and picking up and moving objects around in 3D space. So we can close these windows. I won't close them yet because I do want to go over what they contain and kind of the systems that they represent, but they are closable. They are also bound to the screen. For those of you who care about that kind of thing, it was really important to me. I hate when I can, get these things stuck off the screen and forget where they're at. We'll just set them there for the moment. Come back to that later. We do have a mouse wheel first-person view, like you might find in other role-playing games. Pretty easy to implement, and I figured I would do so early. We do have a information pop-up, name pop-up. I know that this is going to probably be an optional thing. Not everyone likes to see text all over their screen, but I figured it was useful to have early, and it, of course, does follow the mouse as well when you're in mouse look. So we can right-click an item and get a context menu. This context menu is also data-driven. So all of these objects have their own way of interacting with them. And for the moment, currently, that is just these two, and pickup hasn't been implemented fully yet. So that won't work. But the inspect is. And so what this allows you to do is kind of, interact with things in the 3D world without having to pick them up. It was always a niggle of mine in games like Oblivion, where you would, have to pick up and put an apple in your pocket in order to eat the apple. So I figured, why not allow people to eat stuff when it's on the table in front of them? So if we inspect it, we do get our little window pop-up. It just has some flavor text for the moment, as well as the weight information and the stack limit for the inventory, and the inventory icon and a text as well for the name. With that said, let's go into the inventory. And it is a drag and drop grid-based inventory. I will also say this is also data-driven. So players will not have a single inventory. Rather, they'll have bags or whatever, like Ultima. And they'll be able to slot those bags into the inventory fairly easily. And then in that inventory, store other items like that. So with that in mind, there are some issues that I haven't worked through fully with the inventory system yet that I'm currently working on, such as allowing the items to be dropped into the world. That's something I have solved. I just need to get it actually all plugged in, as well as merging stacks, splitting stacks, and stuff like that, as well as incorporating the context menu into the inventory. That's a little bit more complex because the inventory system is completely structure-based, data structure-based, and obviously data structures can't run code, so there's a little workaround I have to do to get that working the way that I want, but for the most part, at least, this stuff is where I want it to be, at least in terms of design. Inventory will both have slot limits and a weight limit, like our old school Ultima games, and currently I just have the private inventory of the player populated by default. So this is just for testing, but I'll go ahead and close that out. We have a compass down here. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Really basic, but I will get rid of that as well. The vitals screen does show some core vitals. In this system, at least, I wanted to kind of incorporate something more than just health and stamina, or health and mana, or health and magicka, or whatever you want to call it. So there is a working steps or working stages idea for a more complex vital system that uses both a health concept as well as a morale concept. Like games like, again, Ultima, I really didn't want killing things to be so easy, but also as encouraged or desirable. I wanted there to be some weight behind something as significant as killing something, whether that's a person or a goblin or a pig. Death in a lot of games is very meaningless. And that's sad. And I want to make killing things a bigger deal. And so it made a lot of sense to have health be separate from combat state, or from combat health in some way, shape, or form. That's all being worked out still in terms of design. But that's kind of where my mind is with that. And with those familiar with Ultima, one of the gimmicks in that game is you can, of course, not kill things that yield to you, and you are supposed to do that because those games are a lot about, you know, being a good person. And while I may or may not have that system, you know, encouraged or implemented the same way, I did want to not encourage mindlessly killing every bird, bee, and boar that you come across in the world. So that was kind of my mindset here. There is also a paper doll in development that is currently not implemented as a proper UI element that will show your limb health and stuff. I didn't want to go as far as to have, you know, Dwarf Fortress levels of damage and injuries, but maybe somewhat in that direction. So that does exist, but is not available as a widget. This widget, as I mentioned earlier, is not currently bound to the player state, and these states don't really change yet because, of course, I haven't implemented any of the stuff that would affect this, like eating and drinking. But for the moment, at least, we do track whether the player drinks anything or eats anything, whether they get hypothermic or hyperthermic, and these are all chickenometers, so they will look different or fill up differently based on, you know, whatever their actual UI status is. I will also say, for those concerned about food and drink and body temperature and dirtiness in a video game and how tedious that is, I completely agree. Those things are very tedious. Everything in here is primarily designed to encourage role playing, and as a result is slowed down by a pretty significant amount. You know, if you look at a game like Minecraft where food is tolerated but considered relatively annoying, or you look at games where food is kind of intrinsic to the core concept of the game, many survival games, for example, they're all implemented fairly similarly, but it really just comes down to scope and what the relationship is with the game flow. So this is, of course, a role-playing game, and as a result, eating and drinking is sort of important to simulating or encouraging that kind of role play. But I didn't want it to be tedious, and I didn't want it to be annoying, and I didn't want it to be fast, right? I didn't want you to have to eat 4 times a play session. So all of these are going to be based on have an 8-hour maximum play cycle, right? Implying that the day and night cycle is no longer than that, to hopefully prevent players from playing the game too long or from having to eat or drink all the time. So I'll go into more detail about kind of my mentality for how this would be designed out, separate from the code, but in the actual game design, probably in another video. Attributes are data driven. These are kind of the 10 core attributes that I kind of figured would go into this flow. 5 bodily attributes and 5 mental attributes. Didn't want to have charisma because I didn't want it always was a little strange to me, especially in multiplayer games, that you had a stat that represented your interaction with other players, despite the fact that you usually can just type in text yourself, and your text is what's charismatic or not. So that may also feed into wisdom and intelligence, because obviously you can say dumb stuff in a text chat too, but you know, that's neither here nor there. At least I can fudge that around with some magic stuff, but charisma is a lot harder to queue into a magic system. So these are data driven, of course, though. So players who do private servers or dedicated private servers will be able to modify these and add their own and stuff like that. Everything you see here is going to be, or is tagged data driven. Currently just with data tables, CSV files, but I do hope to expand out some of this stuff with JSON in the future, but not at the moment. Proficiencies are also generated. These are just the 3 starting ones that I wanted to test with. The proficiency system is also data driven, so you could add proficiencies by simply modifying the CSV file and modifying things and actions to alter these proficiencies in some way. The way that these proficiencies work in terms of gameplay design, separate from the code itself, is still up in the air. I like the idea that proficiency with a weapon or something matters much more than maybe your strength does or your agility does or whatever. How granular those proficiencies are is still open to debate in my brain. A big part of me is skewing towards an idea that sub-proficiencies of proficiencies complement one another, right? So if you're good with a longbow, you'll get some experience with all other bows, but not as much, or something like that. So that's kind of where my brain is with this system. But the proficiency parent-child relationshipy stuff is at least already implemented, so I don't have to worry about doing that part. So that's everything that I've worked on for now. A lot of it has been trying to fudge through the ideas and the design systems that I want to have in this project, making sure that they're extensible and modular and relatively data driven, but also getting some placeholder art and stuff. All of these, all of the models are made by myself, though some of the environmental textures are sourced outside of my own skill. So anything that looks like it's flat shaded is probably me, with the exception of the barrels and furniture. Those were modeled and textured by me as well. So I would love to make some better textures and stuff, but I only so much time in the day. So thank you everyone who watched this video through. I'm not a content creator. I don't do this to get views necessarily or drive engagement. I do this for just to share the projects that I work on. But if you do have suggestions or feedback, or want to subscribe to stay informed about the project, or want to like this so that other people can see it, and if more people see it, then more people can comment, and if more people comment, I can get more ideas and go in different directions and get some inspiration from people who play these kind of games. That would be much appreciated. So thanks everyone for watching and for your support, and I will see you in the next devlog.